I really don't know how to open this, but welcome back to Gingerated. I don't know how to start these properly anymore, but it's been a long while, I'm sure. I've just been working on kind of a lot of things these past few months, but for now, I'm here again. And although some things may change if you notice them, we still have a bit to look into today, so let's get started, shall we? I chose to discuss CJYT's A Memories recipe for today, for no particular reason other than it was a recent upload and short enough for me to pick apart easily. It has a trailer and one episode out currently, both I will be considering and looking at for this video. Halfway through writing the script, I read the description saying that this is her first time writing a series, and so I realized that I'd probably need to go easy, but I'm not going to miss out on anything just because. So without further ado, here we go. When it comes to beginning scenes, first episodes, or just starting your story in general, it's important to establish either a significant character, significant plot point, or the significant themes, tones, or messages of the story. You could also simply just aim to charm people with the story. Showing the character being vulnerable isn't a bad first scene, it helps with relatability and audience empathy towards the character. But the thing is, bullying is a sensitive topic, but it's a bit average and impersonal in this scene. The scene isn't trash or anything, but it simply doesn't do Vivian much characterization. Like, any and many characters could be or have been bullied in this exact same way, in this exact same scene with the exact same dialogue lines. In fact, this scene is kind of pretty tropesy. With the cliche setup and the way it's resolved, it's very vague and it's not really something memorable for her character, so I don't understand how it's a core memory for Vivian. What could have been better was a more personal or direct reason for her bullying, something that kind of accentuates the character, which can give us a reason to remember her. And about the guy that saved her too, yes, it's an act of kindness that the victim in this situation would be grateful for, but this becoming a core memory, even though it's just a brief one-time interaction, is kind of a reach. Girlie, they didn't even speak more than 2 sentences to each other, so what's up with the kindergarten love at first sight type of shit? Like, what? No, that doesn't happen. I mean, I guess it could, but and the fact that it looks like, from the trailer and opener at least, that this dude she met at like 6 years old is her motivation to cook, like, what is this? Don't do that. A main character's dreams and motivations should be a thing they want because they themselves are passionate about it. It really shouldn't have been rooted by someone else if you want a character that's independent and can stand on their own. So this really is a nitpick, but I mean, I wish I could wake up that gracefully. Usually people would probably be disoriented a bit and won't address their dream right away until like 10 minutes after they wake up, where they'd go like, oh shit, right, that dream, oh my gosh. But I'm also glad we didn't go too much into the waking up, getting ready, eating breakfast, talking to mom kind of setup, but minus points for the I'm gonna be late trope. Again, there's nothing really significant here, like, it makes sense, but it could have been utilized better story building wise, especially since there's still lots of potential engagement from viewers as it's only 1 minute in right now, so it's better to use that with efficient pacing, structuring, storying, just something. The intro here as a whole is pretty good, like the visuals are interesting and I think it gets you intrigued for the plot of the story. Siege sang the song herself, and sometimes when creators do that, it doesn't really come out that good, especially when they're inexperienced, but I think the vocal color, her vocal style is pretty and it is pleasant to the ear, so I think she did a good job with the vocals for the most part. The editing is also pretty and the credits are thorough. Although I gotta say, it's a bit too thorough because some form of credit showed up at least like 3 times during the episode. So like, that's nice. I think that's nice. I don't know if that's like normal everywhere else, but I think there needs to be more decisiveness on the amount of times you do it. I think 2 is fine. 2 is fine for the next time. I also consulted Coco about the Japanese and she said it's alright and the visuals playing also fit the song lyrics, so I think it's a cute touch. I can't tell if there's actually something wrong with doing this, like if it's cultural appropriation, but personally, I don't think so and I don't mind. It seems to be harmless enough, and the inspiration went into good use, seeing as the show has a unique flavor compared to generic things, and it's a dynamic intro compared to those in the same animation genre, so I think it's quite cute. So there's this plot point around the first third of the episode where they have to restock up on ingredients, which is why Vivian goes to this grocery, thus meeting the dude that's probably the male lead. Actually, I think this scene sort of has holes in its logic. Well, the scenes after this have even more holes in the logic, but we'll get to that. It'd most likely be Grayson's job to buy the ingredients to restock. Like, isn't he the dude for that? Like, that's his job? It's irresponsible of them to have the only chef around being the one doing errands outside of the restaurant. At least there was an attempt to set up the bump in with the male lead in a planned story beat kind of way, and it's not necessarily a bad setup. But yeah, the logic is messy and it's kind of plot devicey when you think about it. Better to have written things to be a more seamless kind of circumstance, because really, Vivian is the last person that should be out of the restaurant at this hour. Also, just a side note and suggestion while we're at it would be nice to take some time in researching culinary informations and norms in this kind of industry, so that we'd be able to kind of integrate it and describe it more in the narratives and dialogues, thus making the show sound more authentic. Like specificities on how Vivian's cooking tastes like, what her cuisine specialties, cooking techniques, strengths and weaknesses and background is, plus what the restaurant's classification is and what specific cultural cuisine is being offered there. Doing all this would just be the extra step that could make the show feel more like a genuine about cooking and about someone who cooks kind of vibe. I really don't know if it's just me, but this is a completely stupid conversation. I would be ranting right now, but I think this recording pretty much sums it up. This is so stupid. I'm sorry, but like, just tell her that you have her wallet and her ID. It's that simple. The first instinct you'd have when you find something on the ground and then you want to return it, and when you call the person, you're gonna say, "Oh hey, sorry, I think like I have your wallet and ID." That's the first thing you're gonna say. You're gonna state your reason. You're not gonna be all mysterious and be like, "Oh, you're gonna know when you see me." Like. No, but for real, who says that? Like, who says you're gonna no one. Who? What first instinct? Like, what kind of communication error is going on? Who does this? What the hell? That's not the point! You could have said that the first time, you creep! Excluding when they first bump into each other, the first half, their phone call and the part where he grabs onto her shoulders like a freak who doesn't understand what personal boundaries are, is just extremely questionable logic and choice of action. And the second half, where they're talking, is stupid because of the banter. And this scene.
I admit that I was not paying attention to my personal belongings, but you don't have to rub it on my face.
Should I apologize?
Oh, I'm sorry, ma'am, for stealing this wallet of yours.
And? You didn't insist on handing it over?
I prefer calling this number than disturbing someone's privacy.
Both halves put together are still only meh in terms of writing because the dialogue is just ha. Mainly the guy is ha. His lines are so questionable. The scene is passable as a cute interaction, not because of the setup and the dialogue, because those just don't make any sense, but only because the VA's deliveries are quite okay, they're quite nice. Like, who's gonna go back on this interaction and go, "Remember when we first met? We were so romantic." Like, who? If you read the lines raw, it won't feel all too natural. It won't all too feel like a natural conversation. So yes, the voice acting is the thing that semi-saved the scene. And the editing too, for sure. All I can really say about the scene is ask, what was the purpose of the scene? Like, I mean, it's pretty entertaining just watching Siege's brother going off like that in the background.
Excuse me? Are you the manager here?
Emanating real Marites vibes. Like, I swear he's been the most expressive character we've had so far. But the scene didn't really show character development, nor would it forward the plot, nor will it impact the plot in the future. Like, maybe you can say it's showing Vivian's duality. quote-unquote, with being scary and a responsible employee or something like that, which I guess, personally, I would have expected it to be something like Vivian kicking his ass with a remark or, physically kicking his ass out, but no, she just let the Karen go, but I guess that's besides the point. Jokes aside, the scene isn't super satisfying to me on a writing standpoint because again, the scene doesn't really showcase anything special nor add on anything new to the story. It's just filler again. If you took this scene out of the story and just continued on to the next one, literally nothing would change. You could argue it sparked the talking point for Mallory's personality as either aloof or clumsy, I guess. We got the conversation about her, specifically on her professionalism or lack thereof. Like seriously, this girl should have been fired like last year. But I mean, these 2 consecutive scenes are still lacking when it comes to plot building either way. Hypothetically, if this person was a past bully of Vivian and mocks her for food, and then we see Vivian's emotional reaction to this, it would have contributed a lot more to the character building, and it would still have a similar effect to this scene. Plus points if this is a moment where you showcase Vivian's insecurities and inner dilemmas about her career, and plus points if this complaining character is actually important and reoccurs. It makes this bratty appearance of his our introduction to his character, which makes the scene significant. This is just to emphasize my point of making your scenes count. There's no need to sacrifice entertainment for functionality or vice versa, because it's very possible to do both at the same time. Also, I think it's great we left on a cliffhanger like this. Obviously, at first you wouldn't like it as a viewer, but these things are great choices for writers so that they can keep the engagement for next episode. Although, for me, it's weird to throw in this plot thing after most of the episode has been a more casual, just watching these characters kind of situation. It comes a bit out of left field, not too immensely to the point that it's bad writing, but it's definitely a bit odd with the structuring so far. And also the line the dude said, like, what do you mean a pleasant surprise? You're the one who came here. What did you expect? I think it definitely would have flowed better if there was more plot stuff all throughout, but nonetheless, a cliffhanger for the first episode is always a good choice. Related to this, there's also that one line in the trailer about the whole her father was a famous chef situation. Yeah, it's like not really mentioned much in the first episode. It's not mentioned at all in the first episode. You may think that it's too much to include all the information right away at the beginning, but technically in structures that's the purpose of the beginning. The beginning is the exposition and introduction point. At this beat, you should already be laying your cards on the table, setting up your characters' backgrounds or their significant character points in general. And I think that her father being a famous chef is pretty significant character point. Sprinkling in these kinds of details is important in establishing a kind of foundation, so that the viewer is already familiar with things that will reoccur later on and will have more details in the story to work with or look back on. It's better to include advances for the main plot, which is probably the whole contest thing, in the first episode right away. Like, better to show them already preparing for the competition, or like getting news of the competition, or like something like that from the get-go, instead of simply a lot of filler. Actually, the filler content isn't boring, but it's always better to make everything significant to the story. It just makes your plot feel smarter and more engaging that way. The characters could show off their dynamics at the same time they're talking about the contest, and it's great to be as practical and functional as possible. Although having the spark of life in every scene through the characters is important too, you don't need to trade that in order to be efficient in writing a scene to be purposeful, so you really need to consider balancing these things well. When it comes to the editing in the show, the background music is chosen wisely as they're at times the cheery tone setters these genres of shows tend to have, but are also suitable in the way they don't grab too much attention being, in the background for their scenes. But really, the visual editing and animation, it is really dynamic that you wouldn't get bored of it. It's a really pleasant viewing experience, and it's so fun to watch these cute scenes since they're quite bouncy and the frames are not static at all. There's clearly a lot of effort put into these backgrounds and small movements as well. Like, really, there are moments with body language and gestures that speak for themselves, like literally, oh my gosh, the detail. Some parts are quite realistic, well, realistic in terms of the animation, because gacha is not realistic, but it gets me a little excited because it's so cute, how it's so... They mostly don't look half-assed, and that kind of commitment is really admirable to me. In the visuals department and on an editing standpoint, the show is definitely a fun and entertaining watch, and props to the team for being dynamic like that all throughout, even if doing things like that may be exhausting. I would say the voice acting is good. Not extremely notable, but I'm glad that for the majority, they sound natural with a hint of expressive detail. Siege's is great as well, and there's not a lot of moments worth complaining about when it comes to delivery, and only some moments for audio and voice quality. I fangirled over some voices after hearing them for the first time, girls and boys alike, and the voices do contribute a lot to the fact that the characters' interactions are very lively. The delivery and the laughs that come with it actually save their scenes a lot of the times, because the dialogue, I've said my praises about the editing and animation for this, but the writing, it's not bad, but I would say that a lot of the times it's empty. It's not difficult to throw in developmental exposition while writing dialogue and interactions. If you have a lot of plot or details you want to hint at to the viewers, it's very easy to slip it into the writing, at least in my case, and in fact you'd want to do it as much as possible, but through natural dialogue of course. A lack of substantial plot-related details or things that foretell what is to be happening in the story is a sign that either your plot isn't prepared nor does it weigh much, or that you're just bad at properly putting together scenes that can forward viewer interest in the plot. To be honest, A Memory's Recipe does seem like it has things planned and like it has potential for its plot, so maybe it's the latter. I will say, many of the scenes showcase the dynamics between the main character group very well. Sometimes cliché edits and dialogues, but the atmosphere between the characters is very fun and light, and I appreciate that they have enjoyable moments. With considerable personalities, they're not that boring or bland, which I must admit is refreshing, really refreshing, like oh my gosh, really refreshing. What lacks though is the purpose of their scenes most of the time. There's not much development in them, nor any reveal of the characters' possible personal problems, conflicts, inner demons they're dealing with, none of that. This makes it less than satisfactory at times, because although the scenes they're in could be entertaining, there's always gonna be the question knocking on the back door of your mind, asking what is the point? The point, I may add, is a very significant thing to establish to people for the sake of a deeper emotional connection to the story. I'm sure we can all have people connect to funny characters because they make us laugh and those dopamine hits makes us want to see them more. But like I've said, making people laugh is different from making them care. Jokes are only one of the tones you can use to help people connect in story writing. Humor is stupid, and a lot of it is based on randomness and chaos, and even when a story is lacking, if it's funny enough for some people, it's good enough for them. This is why some writers default to comedy to carry a show, and this is also why the quality and well-writtenness of a piece should not be judged by whether it made you cough up your lungs or not. There's always potential in characters, so stop trying to hide mediocre writing behind a stand-up comedy act. If I wanted to see that, I would have watched a B-movie. So, all of this brings me to one of the main issues I have with the show, seeing the premise of it so far. As a main character, Vivian is kind of weak and has flimsy motivations. It seems like her actual passion for cooking is rooted in some boy that helped her out when she was young, which she can only really recall as a distant memory and can't even remember properly. Like, how are those things even remotely related? Situations like that are never impossible, but it's hard to really build character relatability when a motivation like that isn't admirable. You may lack a theme or message because of this, and it's hard to not feel disconnected to the character or feel like the character doesn't rely on external forces to move forward when clearly they do. A main character's internal workings are really important to get right. That's why you see struggles coming from backstories that had ended in disasters or were very traumatizing to the characters. They change, gain a fear or an internal struggle, and that would clash with their goal. Usually that goal is what your plot is surrounding. All throughout the plot, the chances of them succeeding or failing will differ vastly. There will be and should be many turns, but usually a character's passion or determination to achieve this goal will outweigh their fear. Viewers can see that right at the beginning and will expect that. You need to show that the character can absolutely meet these expectations, no matter how many curveballs and twists and depressing moments you throw at the character, and no matter how dim the situation looks. This is sounding like a motivational speech. Just here. A character's memorability and admirability thrives when you do this correctly and make them grow as a person. And this is why it is essential you showcase those fears and capabilities right from the jump. Viewers would gain sympathy, support, and interest. It would become a situation they'll need to see the outcome of, and this way they'd care enough to watch your character, wait and stay for them, and remember them. As a whole, I do have a positive view of the series. It may be simple, but there's no harm in that because it works as it is. It's a show that entertains and it's an okay enough watch. Do I think it's anything groundbreaking? Of course not, but we can't really expect that in the community. To me, it's satisfying enough to see the visuals done well, the effort put into it by the team, and just a very brightly set up atmosphere in the show because of the characters. The character dynamics and banter in the show could be cliche at times, but is a good thing that I wish was done better by other series. Although I do wish that the A Memory's Recipe cast of characters get better characterization and more substance in the writing department. Nevertheless, it's a good shot for a first time. The laughs are abundant, but I hope it doesn't rely on this, nor is it only acknowledges this before gaining a title of being an amazingly written show by the masses. It's not quite there yet, but I do have many hopes for it. So, that's my review on The Memory's Recipe. Hope it was a good time for you because it was for me. I must say, it's been so long since I've recorded one of these that my voice is giving out sooner than later because man, is it dry. I miss doing these and I'm surprised I had a lot to say. I'm very satisfied with my work today, to be honest. I also hope it comes off as simply lighthearted. I definitely mean no ill will, and I'd genuinely be happy for its improvement. It would be one more show in the favor of a better quality in the community, so I'm wishing Siege and her team a good luck. I'm like, oh gosh, I want to eat lunch now, so I'm going to call it quits. Here's my social medias, here's where you could find me more often. I don't really know what to say, so here's the work I've been doing the past few months or whatever more I want to put on the screen right now, and it's been fun today. I'll see you soon, and what's my ending line for these? I should think of a new one. But that's my opinion. It's a good opinion. Never mind. Goodbye.